So, today we got the chance to interview Dr. Cheryl Keller Capone. All right, so picking up where we left off, I think we had just talked about how the PT was saying that there was probably a lot of issues, and you strongly believe the autonomic nervous system was really playing a strong role in it.
Exactly, yeah. So, we worked on used a lot of movement techniques and breathing to really try to calm the nervous system. He's a manual therapist, and we do a little bit of manual therapy, and all of which, I found very helpful. Eventually, though, I said, I can't even get up off the floor. I'm having trouble getting out of bed. There's just so much pain. And well, I say that too, and there was times of pain, but it wasn't even pain. The level of pain a lot of times, was more like in the whole 1 to 10 scale, which I hate. More like a 1 or a 2. But the bigger problem was more, I felt like a dysfunction where, I felt I was having trouble walking. At times I felt like I was dragging my right leg and I trip over my own feet going up the stairs and, things like that. I thought, this is great. I'm not even in my early 40s. And I feel like I'm, a couple of years ago, I'm running 19-minute 5Ks. And now I feel like I'm, almost disabled. Right. Mm-hmm. And it was really scary, I have to say. And all this while I actually started it was coincidentally around the time when I started working in the genomics lab. So now all of a sudden I'm doing more sitting and more computer work, which probably wasn't helping. But in any case, so he introduced the get up, and that was fun, and sort of was kind of the beginning of, and we just body weight, but the beginning of learning to strength train, and he is an amazingly patient therapist, and since it's what I have to say too is since it was a cash PT, we could meet as frequently. We met once a week, and that there was really no approved of visits, and I was paying out of pocket, and I was worth every penny, let me tell you, because I felt like, we could work on things that were helpful, where if you're having to go through insurance and so forth, and are they really going to be paying for learning how to do a get up or learning how to hip hinge and do a deadlift, right?
Right.
So I this model was really helpful to me. Because he taught me to strength train, and me being a perfectionist, of course, I was all about doing it exactly right. And I did a lot of reading, and I started, really this when I really started educating myself. Since I really read a lot, we would talk about, we did pain science education. I read about pain science, and with a background in neuroscience, and this all made sense to me. But and I understood that there's an emotional component and so forth, but, knowing that didn't really help my pain or improve function. It wasn't really until we did strength training and worked on movement and try to improve posture and reduce asymmetries. And those are the things, which helped me. Understanding that pain didn't necessarily indicate tissue damage. I mean, that was helpful knowledge, but that didn't necessarily mean the pain went away, right? So, and clearly I had a long history of, some back and neck issues and not moving well. So, it took a long time. I mean, we met for about an hour a week, almost 2 years really going through. I mean, we're trying to address, 30 plus years of some issues and loss of mobility. So, but, because we had that time, we also talked a lot, and he really educated me a lot about movement quality and movement patterning and strength training. And we talked about all kinds of stuff, and it was great. It was really, in that respect, very educational. And he did it. He was, pleased with my technique, if you will. And we, and at the time, actually, also, this is another reason why I wound up becoming more interested in getting my personal trainer certification and kind of doing some coaching, is that at that time we were running out of money in lab, and we were pretty much out of grants. We were running on fumes. And in academia, a lot of labs just run on grants. And once you're out of grant money, you can be out of a job. I mean, I have a faculty position, but I'm not a tenured faculty. So if there's no money, I don't have a job. I'd have to move on. And I thought, I got really interested in strength training and movement, quality movement. And I thought, I really like this. I might want to do this. And so I kind of really started learning more about that with the idea that this is going to be my backup career here, that if we don't get a grant, I'm doing this, this is what I'm going to do. I'm not going to, I didn't want to change fields again, right? I did muscle, I did neuroscience, I did genomics, and I thought, I want to do something that really matters to me. I feel really passionate about this because you really see how much this is helping me. So he said, Cheryl, why don't you, get your personal trainer certification and you can do this. Work with people. I said, this is great. Yeah, I'll do this. I mean, I already had the science background, right? I've taught anatomy and physiology. And now that I had a lot of really essentially personal personalized education, one-on-one with a physical therapist who does coaching, and he's a recreational triathlete and so forth. So, this was great. I was like, oh, it's great. So, so that's really how I kind of got interested in that. And so in a way, it was a backup career at that point. And now I kind of view it as a hobby, in a way, if you will, or part-time, because really when it comes down to it, I mean, I am a scientist and I've committed to, these projects, but I am definitely passionate about strength training and quality movement. So I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, but to back up a little bit is, I kind of at some point after a couple of years, at that point I felt like I was, definitely much improved and I could do get-ups and so forth, but, I still felt that there were a few issues kind of going on, and we were still working through that. But since I had gotten my certification, and he said, hey, do you want to work with, want a little bit of experience working with people? I was like, sure. So he generously invited me along on a couple of, with the client's permission, from a couple of clients who were just learning to get up or just learning, other how to deadlift and so forth. So I got to do some observation. I got to, teach a get up and help work with someone on their squat.
Yeah.
So things like that. So this, And I don't even want to say it was an internship because it really wasn't. It was just more, he invited me along to, when he was helping someone, and
like
a
research assistant.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, and I did instruction. I helped, instruct and practice instructing, in the get up or whatever, but he did a bike fit with someone once, and I got to sit in on that. And learn a little bit about that. So it was kind of a little. That's awesome. Unofficial. Yeah, that was great. It was really, and I think that I thought this is fun. I really enjoy this, and it's something I feel so strongly about because it helped me get my life back. Really, right? I went from barely getting up to hey, I can deadlift and so forth. Eventually, I eventually hit a bit of a plateau, and I wound up. I still hadn't been running yet. I was still experiencing a few symptoms here and there, and that's where I think it gets a little bit less clear. The muddy waters are still a little muddy. What things can we tweak? I wound up seeing a chiropractor for a couple of visits. Local chiropractor is a specialization as a sports physician, I think. And he helped me a lot as well. And he's the one who actually sort of facilitated the final, my return to running. But, so I really have to acknowledge sort of both clinicians, for helping me really get me back on my feet and get me back into, having an active life. And I really am so grateful for both of them for their care and, compassion. And finally taking, giving me the benefit of the doubt. Hey, I'm not here seeking pain meds or anything else. I just want to, live a pain-free life and right. Be active again. And then, that's really what life's about. Right. So it's just, go ahead.
It just sounds like the focus that, like you said, with strength training, the focus shifting more from let's focus on strength training. Let's focus on movement as opposed to we're just focusing on your post-tip issue. That really
Right,
seems to be
right.
like you said, that's what changed. Just what I love when we looked at your website, I think it's either on your website and Twitter, you just say when you talk about your training clients, you say that I teach movement, and those words just really resonate super hard with me. And it's like, oh, she's one of us. You're right.
Yeah.
We're one of her. You know?
She's PT 2.0 and she's not even a PT. So.
Yeah, she's better. She's better.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, I do want to be clear. I am not trying to pretend I'm a physical therapist or clinician. I certainly I would never try to treat somebody's injury or pain, right? But I think that I have a fairly unique perspective because I did go through so much rehabilitation, and really developing a feel and an eye, if you will, for movement quality, right? And are you really moving through the hips, or are you using, anterior pelvic tilt to start your squat? I did those things, and I had to work on my shoulder and work on my hip and work on my ankles, and to really, I felt like I had to regain and relearn how to use my body. So I think that does give me a unique perspective, and I actually wish I had more time, to work with clients. I have a home gym, and I really only work with a couple clients at a time. And it's I don't view, although my certification is personal training, I really don't view it like that. Where I'm just kind of telling people what to do and counting reps and so forth. No, let's work. Let's do a movement assessment. Let's work on your hip hinge first and your squat. Let's get the quality. Let's get the quality movement down first. Before before you're kind of make sure you're moving well, right? Before you start loading the pattern. So, and I appreciate that, certainly. Yeah. So I think that's really, it's what I enjoy, and I wish I had more time for that. But really, I have to, my obligation really is to my job at Penn State and as a scientist, and, that's paying the bills right now. And I like science, but, as things finish up, we expect our lab to run maybe another 5 years. My boss will be about ready to retire, and then I can open up my options. But meanwhile, I can learn as much as I can.
Those genomes can wait. They'll be there tomorrow.
Yeah.
They're not going anywhere.
Exactly.
And just to make two commentaries, just to go back a little bit. One, anyone can teach quality movement. It is not specific to physical therapy, personal training, chiropractor, whatever. So as long as you're confident in your skills, by any means, go for it. And then secondly, just to hear your story, and if I could just put that on a video or audio, for instance, like we're doing now, and just have that story and play that to every physical therapist, physician, chiropractor, anybody in the healthcare system, and say, this is what could happen. And you are, I'm guessing, almost on the brink of just saying, hey, I don't know what to do. But then you found that physical therapist, and you said, hey, and he walked you through that journey, which is very inspiring. And I'm glad that you're on this podcast telling that story for sure.
Yeah, thank you. I really am really grateful for someone to actually look at me as a whole person and really try and help me figure out, let's work through this together, right? Let's actually figure out and not just think I'm some hypochondriac, which is really what I wound up feeling like. Well, there's really nothing wrong with you. And I think that's the whole issue with whole, pain science as well.
Right.
And what patients hear is, well, there's nothing wrong with you. and actually, I didn't say that, I actually had physicians and a couple other physical therapists literally tell me those words. Well, there's nothing really wrong with you. You just need to get stronger, or you just need to exercise more. You just need to move more. But that's not really helpful without instruction.
Right.
Moving more is not quality. Exactly. So yeah, so really, if you're a clinician, if you're studying to be a physical therapist, I think that really taking the time to, treat the person in front of you and not, try to set your biases aside and listen to what they have to say, listen to their story, be compassionate, really.
I agree.
Is there any science behind compassion and empathy? That's all fluff, right? There's nothing There's nothing sciencey about empathy and caring for people, building relationships.
Well, I don't know. So that's not really my area of expertise with more like probably psychology, which I'm not criticizing, but I don't really know really too much about that actually. But what's interesting, I think actually about compassion is that I think that while I would never ever wish, a chronic pain experience on anyone, I think that I'm so much more compassionate to people and recognize that you really don't know what baggage and what struggles others are going through, because I look like a healthy person, right? I'm fit. I look fit, right? I'm thin. I look like a fairly healthy person. No one would ever think that I was dealing with the things that I was dealing with. So looks certainly can be deceiving, and I try to be more compassionate and about others people's struggles. Really, I think that. So I think that came out. I kind of came out of this whole thing by feeling like I'm maybe a little bit of a better person. Well, I guess.
Yeah, that's all the world needs. We need more compassion. We need stricter Turkish get-ups. We need to find out more about our genomes. And so I'm watch me as I tie this back to genomes here. Watch me. So
okay, all right.
We talk about compassion and empathy. How can I'm almost laughing. So we know the importance that, environment versus nurture. I didn't do my research enough to bring up an actual article, but we know that the better an environment somebody grows up in, whether that's on the socioeconomic scale or just a mother who gave you a hug every day, that can lead you to a better, more positive outcomes to some sense. And just like you said, if we're using you as a case study with your physical therapy treatment, things really didn't start clicking to you, or at least moving in a more positive direction, until you had, if I can come out and say, it was better relationships with your healthcare provider. Would you say?
Yeah, I think that was certainly a big part of it. Yeah, really connecting. I really kind of connected with this therapist, and that certainly did help a lot. I'm not sure if I'm answering your question really, but
I don't think I got to it yet. But here's my tie into genomes.
I'm sorry for interrupting.
I was wondering.
No,
I was like,
I lost it.
Come back.
I'm bringing it back. Let's go to the gene expression, right? So
okay,
if we use the breast cancer gene, and here I go. I don't want to mess things up too bad, but we know you can, just because you have a gene doesn't mean, maybe for cancer or for a condition, doesn't mean it'll be expressed and that you have that condition. And a lot of that, whether it gets expressed or not, the gene, or turned on or not, a lot of that can be controlled with your environment, right? Whether it's you have good nutrition, you have a good quality environment, your mother hugs you on a regular basis, that gene may not get turned on, as opposed to negative stimulants, right? To turn that gene off or on and lead to a cancer or a chronic condition. How much sway does environment truly have in turning on and off those genes?
That's a really good question. And I think that I can honestly say that I can't give you probably a perfect answer, because I think that in general, we don't know exactly how much environment is playing, or nature versus nurture. I think it's becoming increasingly clear that environment can and does play a role. And not only that, but some of your experiences, your environmental experiences and exposures and struggles and nutrition and so forth, can make changes in your DNA. So not really in your DNA. So the DNA sequence doesn't change, okay, but the experiences can lead to certain modifications on your DNA, and that would be called epigenetics. So that's a real big buzzword right lately, and that's the modifications of the DNA that can change the way genes are expressed. So that can happen in response to environment for sure. I think that right now really is trying to figure out how much they play a role and whether or not certain things can be reversed. And that's really where the field is part of where the field is at, is trying to figure out how that happens, how they can be reversed, what the impact of these modifications are. So yeah, I think that there's certainly, I think the field of genomics and epigenetics and there's a great potential. We're learning a lot, and there's a great potential for all that to contribute to clinical care. And I think that, more work certainly needs to be done. I think that, a lot of treatments for diseases and other conditions and nutritional studies right now, we're based on clinical trials, which have, a lot of exclusion criteria and limited to diversity and so forth, which reduces, biological variation. And so I think that the information that comes from these trials is not necessarily applicable across the board to all populations, because in fact we do have a variety of different experiences, and we're really just learning now, how much some of these epigenetic marks or chemical modifications called methylation is one example, that are added to DNA and how they do affect expression. So I think that trying to sort of sort through all that and realize that there's more to it than we originally thought, right? It's not just about gene sequence itself, that there is much more to it.
And I just see, it's amazing to hear, to be able to talk to you about this, because recently for Christmas my mom gave me ancestry DNA or ancestry, and I'm right. I'm not a nerd at all. And we see the prevalence of 23andMe. To prep for this interview, I just listened to Star Talk with Neil deGrasse Tyson, and a bioethicist was on the show. Bioethics? I'm not going to slur the words. Sure. But and hearing about that, and Neil deGrasse Tyson was talking to the CEO of 23andMe, and learned a great deal, and in a short span of what maybe the future can look like. Like, are we gonna is there gonna be one day when every American knows their all 3 billion letters of their code and can identify exactly what they're at risk with, and it has a almost perfect probability of determining their state of health? What's that future going to look like for us?
Well, it's interesting. First of all, I've done my 23andMe as well, and that's fun. And I actually did it, now they don't give out quite as much information. There was an FDA, a couple of years ago, the FDA kind of cracked down on them and what they could speculate. Yeah. So, but I actually did mine before that. Like, I sneaked in there a week or two before that happened. So I actually got all their reports. And, I look at it as kind of with a grain of salt. With some of it, I think that, so they're probably, the results themselves are probably accurate. Oh, you have an A here instead of a T. But the interpretation of that, I think has to be viewed with caution. Again, because some of the effect of a different variant could vary depending on your background, ethnicity, and so forth. And again, maybe nature versus nurture, your experiences in terms of what's affecting expression of that gene. I think interestingly, there's a lot of groups that are leading precision medicine initiatives and looking at the vast amounts of data that are out there. Many groups are involved in sequencing, hundreds of thousands of genomes and trying to tie it or correlate it with particular conditions. And this is a popular thing called GWAS studies, which is genome-wide analysis. And they, so where you're linking people's medical records, voluntary, you get voluntary to get your genome sequenced, and they're looking at trying to find correlations between particular variants and conditions. And so, the thing of it is now, at this point, I think we have a lot of data. And data now is easy to get. We can sequence. It's getting much, much less expensive. We can get data. And the question now, so data acquisition is no longer the barrier, right? So really the barrier now is, what do we do with the data? There's just, what does it mean? And I think that's really kind of where we're at. And how do we actually translate that data into clinical practice, right, for disease treatments and so forth. So it's interesting. One of the projects that we're working on here in our lab is a large project called Vision, where we're trying to integrate the large amount of genomic and epigenetic data that's available for hematopoiesis, which is blood cell development. So we're trying to take this large amount of data and figure out what it means. What does it mean? Where we take and try to translate that information from mouse to human, right? So that's kind of our goal is trying to sort through the data and figure out what it means. We're going to ask questions and try to validate hypotheses by doing genetic studies in the mouse and comparing them with data that's available in human. And I think that's really where the next frontier is not getting the data, but figuring out what the data means.
Huh.
And so, I think we're really on the verge. And of course, CRISPR is a huge thing. So have you guys heard of CRISPR? It's just getting to be fairly popular.
Vaguely.
Vaguely. It's a genome editing technique, which allows scientists, researchers to go in and make very, very specific edits, one base pair edits or larger, to genes or to regions in the genomes called enhancers, which actually help tell the gene how much to be expressed or to turn on or to turn off and so forth.
Wow.
So,
like perfect baby science. I was hearing about this and reading a little bit about it, but I'm not sure. It's just like expressing different genes.
As far as editing, you mean for a baby? Do you mean an actual baby?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, so that of course opens up a whole other ethical consideration, of course.
Right.
But yeah. I mean, in fact, some countries like China have already been experimenting with editing human embryos, and I think that's certainly something that's scary, and not scary in that for ethical reasons, right, for ethical reasons. So there's a lot of concern about that, and I think that's warranted. But we're going to see more and more use of CRISPR, or this gene editing technique. In both,
Dr. Capone, if I want to build my embryo like a Lego block, you can't stop me. I'm just gonna let.
There you go. Excellent. So yeah, I think that's. I think it's exciting. I think we're in an exciting time for medicine and healthcare, and I think that we're really going to start seeing a good merger of translational medicine going from the bench and into science and hopefully affecting everybody's health in a positive way. Just got to get everybody doing get-ups too.
Everybody, yes. We need to find the Turkish get-up gene.
Exactly.
And make sure that is always expressed.
Exactly.
The hip hinge gene.
The hip hinge gene. That's the one we got to find.
That's probably the key.
The pelvic stability gene.
Yes.
So this segment that we introduced on the last episode was a little shock to my other co-host, but I decided to throw it in there last time, and I want your take on this as well. What is your favorite duck? You know that our podcast is a duck-led podcast, so what is your favorite be Daffy Duck or so on and so forth. And I'm not
no. I'm gonna have to stop you. We have a researcher on. She has to break it down. Yeah. Species, phyla, all the way from
any duck she wants, real or fictionary duck.
Yes,
fictionary.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna go with the mallard. I like the mallard. the mallard duck. I don't honestly know what the genus and species name of that is. I'm just going to use the generic. But actually, I will tell you that a duck, believe it or not, is one of my favorite animals. I like ducks and I like turtles.
Awesome.
So I'm right there.
Perfect person.
Now, I really do, right? Most people like, tiger, but I like ducks and I like turtles. But here's one quick story that I was on campus. There's a duck pond. There's alumni duck pond, and every spring there's baby ducks. They're so cute, right? So I bring my son was about 8, and I brought my son, and in this duck pond, of course they're adorable, and all these little baby ducks going on with their mom and so forth. And there's a couple of turtles in there, and one day we were there, and there was a turtle drowning a baby duck. I was horrified.
What?
Yeah, I mean, but it is. It was like I was like, I felt so bad. This poor duck. I wanted to go in and save it, but it was interesting, and it was a good lesson for my son in terms of survival of the fittest. Right?
Oh my
Of course, it was fascinating.
Natural selection.
Oh, natural selection, right?
Natural selection that we learned.
Oh God! You need to see this.
I turned it into a science lesson.
Yes.
I just picture your son trying to leave, and you're like, no. You
have to
No, he was fascinated. No, he wanted to stay, and he was fascinated. He was mad at the turtle, but he was fascinated. And yeah, I mean, I said, it's as bad as I feel for this tiny little baby duck, and the turtle was basically drowning it until it died. I was horrified about it, but it really is, that it probably picked on the smallest and weakest swimmer, and I mean, that's sort of the way, that's how evolution happens, really. Survival of the fittest. So selection of genes that are gonna, help our survival.
And that is the most important lesson, right?
Yeah.
I'm a scientist. I had to. I couldn't help myself.
Perfect.
Oh my God. That out of all the amazing things that I've learned, this is by far
excellent.
the most eye-opening. Yeah. That turtles are evil.
Into my psyche, right? Must be really crazy.
That is amazing, Dr. Keller Capone. Man.
Thank you.
It's rare you get to see natural selection in real life, right in front of your eyes.
Exactly. Yeah, right. I mean,
Oh.
you kind of watch it on the National Geographic Channel or something, but yeah, right in front of your eyes. Like, wow.
So Dr. Keller Capone, if you have anything to plug or where people can get in contact with you, reach you, where they can watch your perfect Turkish get-ups, etc.
Well, I am on Twitter at Keller Capone PhD, and I'm on Instagram as Cheryl Keller Capone. I also have a blog, Cheryl Keller Capone. It's on WordPress. Honestly, I'm not selling anything, or I'm not promoting anything particular. If you're certainly interested in connecting on social media, please do so. Happy to make connections. Really, I tend to use Twitter for both, science and strength training, and I'm proud. About alienating one half of my followers at a time versus the other, right? Because some days I'll just tweet science stuff, and other days I'll tweet about kettlebells and Turkish get-ups, right? But it's all fine, and I like to learn, and I really am just trying to share things. I'm trying to share the knowledge that I've gained, that I've learned, and try and make a difference for someone, really.
Absolutely.
We thank you for that.
Well, thank you. And hey, thanks so much for having me. This has been really fun.
Awesome.
I'm honored too. This is my first podcast, so I really appreciate it. It's a blast.
Welcome. You did amazing.
Fruit flies.
Thank you.
Flies, turtles. We learned flies are horny. Turtles are evil.
Yes.
Oh my God. I
also worked on worms for a little bit.
Worms.
But that's a whole different.
Yeah, C. elegans.
That's a whole different.
I know.
Isn't it?
Exactly.
We might need to send another link just for that.
Yeah, that's the next time we have Dr. Capone on.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Man.
Excellent. Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah, I love science, so I love to talk science. I also love to talk strength, so hence the name of my blog, Science and Strength. So, really why I started that is essentially when I started getting more into following people on social media, and let me certainly say a lot of people have some really great stuff out there, but it's also a little dismaying sometimes to see that. So there is also a lot of pseudoscience out there, and that's a big pet peeve of mine.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that drives me crazy. And I think that we all really, everyone in the health and fitness industry really should take a personal responsibility in trying to get the science right. Try not to lead people down a wrong path. We're all doing our best, and no one knows everything, absolutely. But get the science right.
And that's why
ask somebody if you don't know.
So thankful to see you on social media and all the knowledge you're dropping, and that you can live in both worlds, like the most scientific of amino acid sequencing to this is how you do the most perfect Turkish getup you've ever seen. That's amazing to see that.
I'm straddling both worlds at the moment. So I think that what's really it's fun. I'm kind of busy. My son, he's my photographer from time to time, for some Instagram work. But I think really what I really need to do is probably also do a better job of cleaning my house. That tends to be the first thing that falls off. But hey, you have priorities in life, right?
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Dr. Keller Capone.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it. You guys are great.